Welcome to Inside Governance, where we take you beyond the headlines to understand how decisions are made and how they affect you. Let's take a look at the trending stories. US deploys drones to Nigeria for intelligence support. Makinde insists Oyo PDP November Congress stands, vows ballot present. Spotlight on Cross Rivers Colombo boys. I am Cassie Tony. We'll be right back after this break. Joining us now is King Sojalo. Good to have you join us,
Thank you so much, Cassie, for having me. Thank you.
And how are you doing
Fine,
today?
Thank you.
All right, looking at the trending headlines, the U.S. deploying drones to Nigeria for intelligence support. What exactly does this drone, or what exactly is this drone used for?
Well, actually, drone actually has different stations and different purposes. We know of drones that are used by event organizers, and we also know of drones that are used, for funfair. But we are talking about the military drone deployed, multiple MQ-9 Reaper drones recently in Nigeria. That is 200 by the 200 trips. Now, this drone is actually to enforce, the militaries who are the U.S. military who are subordinated to the Nigerian military forces to help tackle the insurgencies. Now, the purpose of this drone is to help tackle insurgencies and also a support for the militaries to take out destroying insurgencies hideouts, and also is a fast machinery that will help the U.S. military and also the Nigerian military forces to be able to apprehend anyone that is involved in banditry, ISIS, or whatever they call themselves, through targeting, through bomb and whatever it contains, so that it will be an easy forces for our military forces. Okay,
so you mentioned that the drone is to fight insurgencies.
Yeah.
Now, how effective is this drone to tackle these insurgencies?
Well, of course, it's going to be it's going to have more effect in terms of combating insurgencies, because if you recall, although the use of drone in Nigeria has been an occurrence since the time of Goodluck Jonathan, but unfortunately, we have not really had full impact on it, on the so-called banditry, Boko Haram, and thereabout, probably because government showed a less concern about enforcing it, and also individuals to take up the tax wasn't really serious-minded on. You understand? The Nigerian government didn't, as I did, even the Buhari administration, it has been on ground, but was not fully implemented, and was not fully launched, and was not fully in operation by the Nigerian military. Now, the U.S. deploying the U.S. For time well-being has made use of this equipment, this machinery, this flying power horse, as I will put it, to help them tackle enemies right from time. So without drone, it's not going to be difficult, but rather without the drone, it might be a little bit complicated by the U.S. forces to carry out the attacks. So that is the effect, and that is how impactful it is with the U.S. military. So that is why deploying this drone to Nigeria will be an easy means for their targets. All
right, looking at our country, Nigeria, it is a sovereignty. It's a sovereignty country. How come they are allowing the U.S. to bring in drones and still handle it?
Now, a sovereignty country that is being a sovereignty country like Nigeria claimed to be, that has been been managing sponsors of bandits is more or less no more a sovereignty country. You understand? A sovereignty country should be a country that should rely on their manpower in all ramifications, also in the military forces. But fortunately, we could see that within our parliamentary system, within our governmental system, there are people who are behind these bandits. They are sponsors, even in our political forum of the country. So definitely, Nigeria is more or less no more a sovereignty state, though it's not to be a sovereignty state. But looking at the chaos, the rate of betrayals within our government system on the people by empowering the so-called bandits, eradicating the country well-being, then definitely our sovereignty level has gone so low. So that is why the U.S. has seized the opportunity to carry out. But right from time, it has been a joint force by the Nigeria federal government and also our military forces. So it's not as if they are doing it by their own, you understand, by their own might. Yes, US has been the world police, and they have been, they are the strongest military forces. They have the strongest military forces in the world. We know that to be, followed by China. But I think they've been a collaboration with the Nigeria government and also the Nigeria military headquarters with the US forces to carry out this task. So they are not just doing it because of their manpower. You understand? So we are a sovereignty country, but nevertheless, the US having, the audacity and the right to carry out attacks is for the betterment of Nigeria. You understand? So I think it's a tax that will really bring our sovereignty state back to normal the way it should be.
All right. So if I will understand you correctly, the Nigerian government, that's President Tinubu, is actually in support of this.
I didn't mention the Nigerian government. I mentioned some cabinet within the Nigeria government. There are those who are in the cabinet. There are those, of course, I could recall where the ex-military general stated it, that those in support of the so-called bandits are within, and it's true, because these people can't have the power to apprehend the country that they don't have backings. You understand? So for the fact is that there are still individuals within the country, and those who are in the political sub-cabinet are fully in support. You understand? Which I definitely know the military, the U.S. military bringing an enforcement to Nigeria currently, those people will be fished out.
All right. So Nigerians are already used to the local machine guns and
armored cars and thereabouts.
Now, this U.S. bringing in drones is a new development, is a new system they are bringing into Nigeria. Will they, who is going to handle this equipment? Is it the U.S. Army, or they want to impact that knowledge to Nigerian Army? Well,
the primary rule of the Nigeria forces, and also having conjunction with the U.S. forces, is the primary role actually is to focus on an intelligent way of dealing with these insurgencies. You understand? So the mission actually is a non-combat and a focus on training Nigeria Army. You understand? Training the Nigeria military. So Nigeria being used to armored cars, machine gun, not having an experience of an advanced weaponized system. These measures of the U.S. coming in right now is for them to be trained by the U.S. So definitely with time, in this mission, the Nigerian military will gradually be improving. A lot of Nigerians don't know that there are experts even within the country that are very good in handling drones. You understand? Probably they might not be known. When drone was initially launched into the country, 2015 or 2016, 15-16 thereabout, there were those who were trained. You understand? There were some intellectual individuals who were taken outside the country, put them through on how this drone can be operated. But the less enforcement of the Nigeria federal government has really weighed it out. But even currently, the Nigeria Air Force, that is the NAF, has also been making use of them frequently, but not as effective of that of the US. So with time, it will be a common scenario in our military forces for constant usage of these drones and thereabouts, because that is the easiest means most military use in tackling insurgency. Okay, I'm even going too far. When I talked about using of drone, yes, looking at our dear Enugu State Governor Umba, you could recall well he launched some drones, and it was handed over to some what they call them, forest guards, and also what they call them, vigilantes to make use of. So if a forest guard and vigilantes in a certain part of Nigeria can make use of these so-called drones and equipment, then how come our military won't be able to make use of it?
The question should be, have they been using it?
Of course. I watched the video clip where they were trained personnel among them. So it was already done, it was already programmed till the day of that launching by the dear governor of Enugu State. So definitely, there are personnel in the Nigerian military who have clear idea and who have good clue of these so-called machineries used by the Nigeria Air Force. So, of course.
All right. So finally, before we move out from this particular discussion,
okay,
what impact does this drones have for other neighboring countries? You know, if Nigerians could succeed in fighting insurgencies or killing the bandits and the rest, what impact does it have to other neighboring countries? And then, don't you think this drones will actually invade the privacy of the indigenes or citizens of a particular location?
I really I recommend that question, and it's a good one. But you see, I think you know, when you know, things like this are being launched, you know, when it is being introduced, you know, there should be some expertise, some intelligences. That is why if you look at the American military, you know, they are scattered in the American security forces. They are scattered into different categories. Most of them we know, most of them we don't know. Okay, I have a clue idea about the FBI, CIA, the Data Force, you name all of it. So they are split into different categories for different missions. So I believe that should also be embedded in our Nigerian military forces, whereby there should be some intellectual expertise in the Nigerian forces to be able to identify insurgencies and to be able to identify terrorists and civilians. You understand? That is the purpose of the military and, you know, intelligence forces within the military. That is their purpose. So carrying out a strike without identifying difference between military and civilian, it shows that military themselves are more or less the terrorists.
You know, when I talked about privacy,
yes,
I'm actually deliberating on coming from the angle of, let's say, you know, in a village setting, definitely not everybody will want to put on dress. Some will want to tie wrapper, just live freely the way they want. So when these drones are being fly, won't it like capture some things that they are not supposed to like capture, which is the privacy, invading people's privacy? So what measures should they take in order for this people's privacy not to be violated? Because if you're talking about people's privacy, there are some things that you need to do.
Yes,
you've invaded my privacy and I don't want it to go overboard. Now, there should be some set down rules and regulations.
Of course, that is why in this current administration of the U.S. deploying drone, you know, there have been a no direct airstrike rule, you understand, by the Nigeria and U.S. officials. That is, the drone will be currently used for reconnaissance. That is, should be mindful of how they use it. You understand? It's not just you just notice that this is a what they call it a bandit hideout and you just strike. There must be a full investigation first, because most of this hideout contains victims, kidnapped victims and thereabouts. So there must be a move of how these people will be set free first before the strike is taken. You understand? So that is why they call for no direct airstrike and also intelligence sharing. There must be a shared shared affairs between civilians and military. That is, within the civilian race, there should be appointed people that should be giving military, although that job is more or less risky, but you should be able to monitor, you know. Example, I'm living in a community and I know very well that our community contains some Boko Haram elements that are trying to hide behind civilians dwelling in that military. As an individual, you can pick up that task, have a close relationship. That's why in most cases they say security is everybody's responsibility. So you, as a patriotic citizen, you should also carry out that task to be able to monitor the welfare of your people. And when you see anything suspicious, give an alert to the military forces. Then they take out their own mission from there. So that is another way to go about it. So in terms of neighboring country, when we fully implement these drones and make use of it perfectly well, definitely our ranking becomes high. And as a matter of fact, other neighboring countries like the so-called sub-Sahara countries who are not even to the standard of Nigeria will start depending on us, for which they have been doing. But it's unfortunate that when Nigeria cannot kill the menace happening in their country, how then can other countries rely on them? You understand? Recall when there was a coup d'etat occurrence in Benin Republic, where our president sent some intelligent forces to make sure to take control over the affair, because the president was about to be captured. So he sent some forces. But it's unfortunate that the president failed to address the menace happening in his own country. You see what I'm talking about. So if this drone can be fully used, implemented, and we're able to tackle these insurgencies violently happening now, that has really taken hold of Nigeria, I tell you, we'll be a ranking nation in terms of military forces, even higher than that of Egypt and South Africa.
All right, thank you so much, Ojalo. So in other words, the drone coming to Nigeria is actually for a good reform and a good thing. All right, let's come back to politics. Looking at the controversy surrounding the Oyo PDP Congress, Governor Sheyi insists that the November Congress will stand with a firm vow on the ballot presence. Now, is this a sign of strong leadership, or is it deepening the crisis with the PDP in Oyo State? Of
course, it's a sign of strong leadership, and it's a sign of a governor who his people can fully rely on. A governor who has chosen to remain in a platform that brought him into power should be a governor that should be highly trusted on. You understand? Which, if you find it currently, it is very rare in Nigeria. Everybody is jumpy ship. But he has chosen to remain in that ship that is sinking to make sure that this ship gain balance. That is what we are seeing. And for such governor, it shows that indeed these are the kind of governors that the people should rely on. I think this is an eye-opening to Nigerians. You see, I think I really like, most people criticize the Tinubu administration, but if you look at the Tinubu administration has really taught Nigeria so well on who your governor is. I don't know if you understand. It has really taught Nigeria so much, and it will be a shameful thing if Nigeria don't learn their lesson. If Nigeria don't really are not able to classify who is who this time around. I don't know if you understand. We could see a lot of if I'm not mistaken, over 30 governors, I stated before, 30 or 32 governors are defected from this platform, PDP, that brought them into power, to the APC. Now, if a governor can defect from a party that brought him into power, then what trust? Then how do you think that governor can stand for his own people? A governor who cannot rely on his own platform that brought him into power. Then how can you save your own people who elected you to power? So Nigeria should be wise this time around. You understand? Nigeria should be wise. As for the Sheyi Makinde, he has really stated his mandate that yes, indeed, he's a governor who should be trusted, a governor who stands solidarity to his word. And if you look at his administration in Oyo State, he's making impact. Yes, it is not a hiding thing. Okay, look at our dear governor Alex Oti in Abia State. The same remark given to him. He has chosen not to leave the Labour Party, and from his statement, is reflecting all over his administration. Governors who have really choose to stand, no matter the situation arriving in that coalition or in that platform, they choose to stand and face the battle. These same governors can also choose to stand and face, any form of how will I put it, endangerment that wants to unravel the state. And these are the kind of people that should be trusted. So I think this is a congressional validity, that the 2025 November election that happened must stand. That is telling Nigerians that no matter what, no matter the court ruling behind the so-called Wike subgroup and the other, that convention which has brought in Turaki which brought Tereke as the PDP chairman, is going to be the ordained convention that took place. So any other convention that just like that of our dear Wike and his subordinates claiming will be held in March 2026, the 29th to 30th or thereabout, to me and to the governor, for what he stated, is more or less a thing of an Easter party. So, all right,
let's understand something. You mentioned that Sheyi Makinde is a loyal candidate of the PDP.
Of course.
Without other governors as affected, he's still in the PDP. Now, if perhaps when he wanted the ministerial position, or he nominated somebody for that position, if that position was actually given to his nominee, or he became the benefactor of that position.
Okay.
Do you think he would have still remained with the PDP, or he would have jumped the ship to the ruling ship?
I think this happened recently between him and his former G5 friend. So there was a situation that happened, similar to this, and if you look up from the look of things, he still remained in the platform, despite some roles not given to his colleague as at then. So he still remains in the platform. So I don't think Seyi Makinde at this time around, no matter appointments not given or given, will still leave the PDP. Because I think if you see Seyi Makinde stand in the PDP, is more or less like the backbone now of the PDP, of the Turaki-led group. So the Wike faction has no chance anymore. Fine, they are still claiming to be a member of the PDP, but they've lost their chances for trying to use the platform to contest or to elect an opposition in the so-called 2027 election. So the Wike faction has no chance, despite the so-called institutions, the judiciaries or the Supreme being behind them. They have no chances anymore. Whatever you do most times, most especially in the political forum of the country, will definitely tell you in the future. Right now, he seems to be a god, forgetting that anything can happen at any time. The Tinubu, most 85 Nigerians are thinking might become the president 2027, just as they have it in mind. Might turn another way around. Something might happen in the House of Rock filler. You never can tell. It might be kicked out. It might be something drastic might happen to the current president. Look at what happened in Venezuela. Who expected that Donald Trump would go to that country and pick up the president just as if he's speaking his school child? Well, so what are we talking about? It can happen. So those who are using the administration power to claim themselves a god, just like Wike is doing right now, at the long run miss their chances. So in the aspect of Seyi Makinde, I don't think anything currently can really move him, no matter the kind of appointment or whatever they tend to give to him, even because it's about leaving the seat as a governor. So I don't think anything is going to move him from changing his mind in remaining in the PDP.
All right, so let's this is not just about Oyo State.
Okay.
Is it?
It's not about it. We're talking about the PDP formula all over the country.
All right, so does it reflect a wider problem in Nigerian political parties?
Well, I think not really political parties. We are looking at the followers, that has really caused national conflicts, yes, but at the long run, it's up to the followers to either stay fast or also jump ship. We are talking about millions of Nigerians who has been a supporter of the PDP and who still have faith in the PDP. Currently, we could see that so many mergers have been happening. You could see the coalition of the ADC, even so many individuals who don't think the APC should be trustworthy are going to the ADC because they really lose faith in the PDP totally. So a lot of people have really lose ground on PDP, lose faith on PDP. But nevertheless, I still believe that there are still some Nigerians, patriotic Nigeria, who still fully support the PDP. The only thing the PDP needs right now is to bring out a transparent aspirant that will emerge, and they should be able to tackle the so-called conflict that is happening by kicking out the bad egg, because I don't think there will be reconciliation. I don't think so, because the Wike faction has said no to reconciliation even when the option of reconciling came about. He said no. So it's all about making sure that the Seyi Makinde led group and the Turaki led group wins this battle. If they can succeed in winning this battle, kicking the so-called the bad egg, the taboo, unraveling the party, then they have what it takes. So it's all about making sure that this battle in the PDP is won successfully by the Turaki led group, and let it be transparent, and those supporters of PDP all over the country will have faith in the party again. All
right, so what exactly does this mean for the PDP ahead of 2027 election? Then secondly, Makinde is insisting ballot presence.
Yes.
Is it about ensuring democracy, or is it about political power move?
No, it's all about being loyal to the reform, and also the ballot presence being amended accurately You could recall where the president and also the Senate ruled out the so-called electronic means of election, putting the manual means of election, and I think that is one move in which they want to make it to their own favor. So he is saying that, look, there should be transparency in this election, and see if any other party platform apart from the APC will not emerge as winner. So from what he's saying, that statement is actually telling to this current administration, make sure that the election is free and fair, and let us see who is going to emerge winner.
All right, so in other words, this is more than just a party crisis.
Of course.
It's actually a test of leadership, unity, and democratic values.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your analysis. So coming up next, a spotlight on Cross River's Colombo boys. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show, still Inside Governance. I am Cassie Tony, still on the show with Kings Ojalo.
Thank you, Cassie.
Now we're now focusing on Cross River State, where concerns are growing over the activities of youth popularly known as Colombo boys. Let's start with the basics. Who exactly are these Colombo boys, and why are they drawing so much attention?
You cannot tie them. You can't tie them. You cannot tie children. What do you mean? The same way you're tying a horse is how you're tying children. You're beating children with a cutlass. For what?
William, please, can you hurry to this garden now? Just come.
Yes.
I'm using cutlass on them. Is that what you have to do?
Don't worry.
Barrister, sorry, Barrister Kiba.
So wait. So let me come, please.
Yeah.
So right now, what happened now?
So what do you mean by what happened now? You are using a cutlass on children. Don't touch.
First of all, the word Colombo boy shouldn't be in existence, and I don't think any set of groups should be called that name. Not just Colombo boys. I also had the one they called the Lacasera girls in the same Cross River. It's unfortunate that our government has not still prioritized and recognized, how children are being molested in the country. So I think that is a name given by those who are fond of molesting children. So it's not a name that should be existing. It's a way of mocking some street roaming children, and that is a name of mockery. So I think it's a name given to some set of children who roam about the state of Cross River and thereabouts, children who the government has, failed to recognize and to rehabilitate, make sure that, they are well catered for, despite their parents are not, taking on the normal parental tax. When a child is being neglected by family, it's up to the government to carry on from there. That is what is happening in most developed countries. Okay, take example like in Spain, even in England, in most European countries, when they find children on the streets roaming about, you hardly see children going on the street. It's very, very hard, you understand, except that child choose to go on a way that will not easily be identified. It's very, very difficult for you to see children roaming on the street. I have not been to the Europe, but I hope to be there one day, but I have made my research, and it is very very highly prohibited. You understand? So I think the government of Nigeria has failed to also carry out this tax. You understand? Not just in Cross River, in Lagos, in so many parts of the country, you see children roaming on the street. And, in the issue of this so-called Colombo and Akasera girls in Cross River State, there are some so-called government tax, they claim they are tax force, they claim they are government force. But to me, I see them as thugs. These are not government tax force, they are thugs. And I know for the fact that the dear Alex, the dear Prince Otu of Cross River State is not aware of this maltreatment given to children by this so-called tax force. It's unfortunate. And again, the governor has his own role to play to make sure you monitor the affairs and the activities of your so-called elected tax force. So just implementing people to take on some certain tax in the street of Calabar and not showing full monitoring, it shows that you are not really doing your work as a state governor. You can look at the high level of maltreatment from those individuals on the lives of those children. If not for some good patriotic Nigeria and volunteers who went to the aid of these children, probably they would have ended up killing them. You could see them tied with rope like a goat, like a ram that should be used for Easter. Just imagine, it's uncalled for. Children, these are children. Okay, fine, they are roaming the street. As you can see, if you look at the faces of those targets, you see how illiterate they are. You can see that there are people who are not even learned. You know, they are. To me, I see them as drug abusers. You capture these children, keep them in a safe place, then get information about them. I believe that is what they were actually told. But you can see the level of corruption. That is why most times when they say Nigeria can't get better, I don't blame those who are saying it. And when we talk about the government is the problem of our country, the government is the problem. See, Nigerians ourselves, we are also the great contributors of the menace happening in Nigeria. That is the truth. You could see some individuals, and I'm very, very sure those so-called touts, or how would I call them, they also have children at home. Imagine someone picking up your child and beating your child on the foot or under the leg with a machete, a cutlass. How will you feel? And this is what they are doing. So it's unfortunate that the government has not really done its clear monitoring, and it's unfortunate that we employ touts to be a so-called task force on this matter. So the so-called name Colombo boys, at first it should be removed. You understand? On any so-called, because I now heard that is a tag name. It should be totally cancelled. And secondly, our governor should please, if you are to appoint people for such, let it be people who are highly educated, not some ingrate touts. That is what I call them to be, because that maltreatment was too much, and that is what they call child abuse. So I'm calling on the Women Affairs Society and also some NGOs to please look out for these children, know their whereabouts, know their parents, and please let them be taken back to their various families. And if in any case any one of them doesn't have a family to be taken to, at least they should be taken to the nearest orphanage home for a proper care on them.
Okay, so you made mention of NGOs and Women Affairs and the rest. Now, the NGOs are doing their job.
Okay.
They are doing their job, but they cannot do all of this alone. Then Cross River State, they actually have what they call CUDA. I think that's Cross River Urban Development Agency or thereabouts. Okay. That's what that CUDA actually means, if I'm correct. Now, they have all of this because these NGOs, they are not capable to do this alone. They also need the support of the government. They also need the support of the community as well. So what happens if this is not properly addressed? And then you made mention, you're talking about these Colombo boys. Are they really criminals, or they are just victims of circumstances?
Of course, they are victims of circumstances, and society has really given them bad reputation. It's all about the failed government. The NGOs, as it stands, is because, fine, yes, they can't do this all alone, but because they too don't have the full backing of government, the government has not really subsided them, has not really taking them into consideration. Because if government did that, I don't think they will be relentless on what is happening in this manner. So the NGOs Women Affairs is probably has had some few denials by the government interference in their organizations, because if the government really interfered, making sure that it provides all the needs to go about, make sure children who are roaming the street are being brought to book and well catered for, they will definitely engage in their duties. You understand? So it's all brought to the table of failed governments. So it's now up to the government and governors of various states to wake up from their slumber on these issues. Not just in Calabar. If you go to Lagos, there are a lot of bridges there, and you see the level at which children sleep under the bridges of Lagos. So it's all about the governor standing up, taking up their respective duty in the lives of children, most especially infants like that, to stop roaming about the street, because even these children are victims. You look at the level of ritual activities happening in the country. Many of them can easily be picked up, used for ritual purposes. Oh, God knows if that is not what most of these ritualists have been doing these days. Sending people, go to so street, you see them, pick them and bring them, let us use them. They are also victims. Forget they are roaming the street to cater for themselves, but they are exposed to danger themselves. So the government not looking out for them, it shows that the government or whatever has failed. Please make a clear reform on how these children can be removed from the streets of Calabar. And at least Calabar is known to be a peaceful place. They look at the name given to it, paradise of the nation paradise, or what they call it. So that name should reflect in the state of Calabar, rather than seeing this kind of menace that no one expected it to ever happen.
During the Leo Moke, or the former previous administration, before this current administration, the rate at which these Colombo boys are actually in the street is it wasn't like that. In
Honestly,
fact,
I didn't even. it was even recently I saw how obvious it was. You understand? I didn't know it would get to this extent. So I think the governor has to really take full force on this matter so that it will come to an end.
all right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Cassie, for having me. Thank you so much.
That's it for today's edition of Inside Governance. Many thanks, Ojalo, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Cassie.
And to you, our viewers, for watching. I am Cassie Tony, reminding you that understanding government works well when we make informed decisions. Join us next time for more breaking news across Nigeria. A beautiful day to you.